I'd like to call this hearing to order. I'd like to say at the beginning of this hearing, it is the tradition of this committee to have nominees in front of us in open and closed session. It's also incumbent on those who attend in the audience that they recognize the order that we expect. The chair would announce now, I will not be lenient. If there are outbursts, you will be cleared from the room and it will be done immediately. So for the benefits of members and for the benefit of our witnesses, if you're going to do it fast, do it early, and be gone. I'd like to welcome our witnesses today. Our witness, Acting Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Ms. Gina Haspel. Gina, congratulations on your nomination. Our goal in conducting this hearing is to enable the committee to begin consideration of Ms. Haspel's qualifications and to allow for thoughtful deliberation by all members. She's already provided substantive written responses to more than 100 questions presented by the committee and its members. Today, of course, members will be able to ask additional questions and to hear from Ms. Haspel in open and closed session. Gina, you've been asked to lead what I believe is one of our most treasured assets in this nation during a period of profound change. The Central Intelligence Agency is one of the principal members of the United States intelligence community and is tasked with collecting foreign intelligence through human sources and by appropriate other means. The CIA operates in the shadows. Its officers are often undercover and sometimes work in hostile and austere environments. It's not simply a job for many, but it's a lifestyle, one that you have lived honorably for more than 30 years. The clandestine nature of the agency's work, however, is both its greatest capability and its most challenging liability, as its activities are outside the public view. We address that liability by calling upon the President to nominate individuals with unwavering integrity, and the Senate approves only those who we are assured will lead this organization lawfully, ethically, and morally. Gina Haspel was born in Kentucky, the oldest of 5 children, where she returned after attending high school in England. She originally told her father, who served in the United States Air Force, that she wanted to attend West Point, only to be gently reminded that West Point at the time did not admit women. That didn't dilute her sense of service, and after graduating from the University of Kentucky, Gina went on to work as a contractor with the 10th Special Forces Group. It was in Fort Devon that Gina learned about the CIA, a place where she could serve along with other women doing clandestine work around the world. Since her departure in 1985, Gina's developed an extensive overseas experience and served as chief of station in many locations. In Washington, she's held numerous senior leadership positions, including Deputy Director of National Clandestine Services. Gina, I've reviewed the material provided by you and have spoken to you personally many times. I believe your intellectual rigor, your honorable service, and outstanding judgment make you a natural fit to lead the CIA. I can assure you that this committee will continue to faithfully follow its charter and conduct vigorous and real-time oversight over CIA's operations and activities. We'll ask difficult and probing questions of you and your staff, and we will expect honest, complete, and timely responses. The American people allow the CIA to operate in the shadows because they have a trust in oversight, and I take that responsibility seriously. Now, some may seek to turn this nomination into a trial about a long-shuttered program. I'd like to set the record straight and make clear to those in attendance and the American people that this hearing's not about programs already addressed by executive order, legislation, and the court of law. It's about the woman seated in front of us. Gina, I've reviewed your records closely. I've read your detailed and thoughtful answer to the committee's pre-hearing questions, and I've spoken with you many times over the years. You are, without a doubt, the most qualified person the President could have chosen to lead the CIA and the most prepared nominee in its 70-year history. You have acted morally, ethically, and legally over a distinguished 30-plus year career. You have operated under authority signed and granted by the President of the United States at the direction of the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency and according to the legal guidance provided by the Attorney General of the United States. Those who have issues with programs or operations conducted years ago should address those concerns and their questions to former presidents, former directors, and former attorney generals. This hearing is about how you'll lead the Central Intelligence Agency into the future, not how you faithfully executed missions in the past. Moreover, you conducted yourself in such a way that your supervisors have uniformly praised your conduct over your lengthy career. Those supervisors commended you for frankness, firmness, and fairness, your moral courage, your integrity, your operational judgment, and professional presence. They've commented on your leadership skills and success in creating a more inclusive and fair workplace, and admired your operating at great personal risk to collect intelligence necessary to keep America safe. Gina, you have the unique experience one only gains from growing up in the CIA. You have the moral strength to speak truth to power. You have learned from the past mistakes of your organization and made clear they will not be repeated. In the days after 2001, you did not just talk about what should be done, you personally volunteered to help with CIA's response to attacks. You dared to step into the arena when our country needed you, and you have done so again today. For that, I am eternally grateful. I look forward to supporting your nomination and to ensuring its consideration without delay. I want to thank you for your willingness to serve your country, for your years of service, and I look forward to your testimony. I now recognize the Vice Chairman for any comments he might make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to join you in welcoming Ms. Haspel. Gina, it's nice to see you again, and congratulations on your nomination. The position of Director of the Central Intelligence Agency is one of the most important in our government. The CIA Director serves as a key figure in our intelligence community. He or she leads the premier human intelligence agency in the world, the largest all-source analysis workforce in the intelligence community. The CIA Director is responsible for providing the intelligence that informs policymakers working on every major national security and foreign policy problem facing our country. As former Director Pompeo's recent trip to North Korea demonstrated, the Director can also be tasked with unusual diplomatic missions. Directors represent the face of the U.S. intelligence community to the entire world, and they should be qualified for that task. Gina Haspel is among the most experienced people to be nominated for the position of Director of CIA. While I remain disappointed that the agency was not more forthcoming in providing and declassifying information about her service, she has served our nation for 33 years in a variety of roles all over the world. I also understand that Ms. Haspel is the first operations officer in more than 5 decades who has been nominated to lead the agency. And, as we've seen with some of the folks who are here, I know she enjoys broad support within its workforce. But many people, and I include myself in that number, have questions about the message the Senate would be sending by confirming someone for this position who served as a supervisor in the Counterterrorism Center during the time of rendition, detention, and interrogation programs. Ms. Haspel has acknowledged the history of the program. She stated that the law has changed and the RDI program is no longer legal. She is committed to upholding the law. I appreciate that. but it is not enough. The secrecy inherent in the CIA's work demands that the director honor and follow the law, particularly in the dark spaces where the IC often operates, and when the glaring light of public scrutiny is non-existent. No one should get credit for simply agreeing to follow the law. That's the least we should expect from any nominee, and certainly from the director of the CIA. For those in the chamber who have argued that no one who participated in the RDI program should ever be promoted, I know there are some who feel that. And while I have expressed on many occasions my own objections to the RDI program, I think we have to recognize at that time the country had just been attacked. People throughout the government were frightened of more imminent attacks and didn't know what to do. And the RDI program was absolutely an outgrowth of that fear. There are many at the agency who participated in the program who believed that what they were doing was both legal and authorized by the then president. What I'm not willing to do, however, is to justify this dark period in our history or to sweep away the decision to engage in torture. I believe the RDI program was wrong, and we need to make sure it never happens again. Ms. Haspel, what the committee must hear and what I must hear is in your own view of the RDI program today, given the benefit of time and hindsight, should the United States ever permit detainees to be treated the way the CIA treated detainees under the program, even if you believe it was technically legal? Most importantly, in your view, was that program consistent with American values? We must hear how you would react if the President asked you to carry out some morally questionable behavior that might seem to violate a law or treaty. How will you respond if a secret DOJ opinion authorizes such behavior and gives you a, quote, get-out-of-jail-free card? On that day, if ordered to take such actions that are inconsistent with American values, will you say yes and follow the orders? Will you keep Congress in the dark? Ms. Haspel, I encourage you to take these issues seriously and to address them at length. My vote on your confirmation will be greatly influenced by how you address these questions today. I know the committee, and I in particular, will want to hear about also your interaction with respect to the 2005 decision to destroy the CIA interrogation tapes. What role did you play? And if given the chance, would you do it again? In the same vein, I would like to know your views from that time on about informing congressional leadership. Given the necessary secrecy of the agency's activities, it is fundamental to our system of checks and balances that you be extremely forthcoming with this committee, with the chairman and with me as vice chairman. I expect you to look for reasons to read us in rather than looking for excuses to keep us out of the loop. Ms. Haspel, you should consider carefully how you might deal with morally questionable requests in the future. If confirmed, you will face a White House, and frankly, in my belief, a president who does not always seem interested in hearing, much less speaking, the truth. The president seems incapable or unwilling to accept the facts that might contradict his views or his policy preferences. Indeed, there have been some in this administration, even some in the president's own appointees, who have been attacked for telling a truth in public that contradicts the White House narrative. You simply cannot allow the prospects of such attacks from dissuading you of speaking truth to power. I'm interested to know how you view your relationship with the president and how you will approach encouraging him and engaging with him. We have seen on many occasions that this president has no qualms about completely circumventing members of his own administration, even when making policy that falls within their agency's jurisdictions. At the end of the day, do you believe you'll be in the room when it matters? And if you're in the room, will the President listen to you when you tell him something is a bad idea? Finally, Ms. Haspel, I will end with what I hope is an easy but critical request. As you know, this committee continues its investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. I will expect your commitment to continuing cooperation with us and with the Mueller investigation in the future. I hope you will agree that it is critical that both of these investigations be permitted to proceed independently and completely towards their own conclusions without White House interference. Gina, again, congratulations on your nomination and for your very important work on behalf of our country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I thank the Vice Chairman. It's now an honor to recognize two of our former colleagues. Welcome to each of you, and I will recognize Senator Chambliss and then Senator Bayh for their introductions. Senator Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to you, Vice Chairman Warner, distinguished members of the committee. It's an honor for me to be here with you today, along with my dear friend and former colleague, Senator Bayh, and also with our mutual friend, Gina Haspel, obviously President Trump's nominee to be the leader at the CIA. It's hard to believe it's been a little over 3 years since I sat on your side of the dais, and while I miss my personal relationship with each one of you, I do not miss the daily decisions that you're having to make, but thank goodness all of you are here to do that. I've known and admired Gina Haspel for many years. In fact, I met her as a member of this committee, and no doubt traveling to one of the many garden spots that CIA officers have been deployed around the globe. Gina is a consummate intelligence professional who is unwaveringly honest and objective, which is exactly the type of person we need leading the men and women of the CIA today. The world in which we live gets more complex each and every day. Today we're fighting terrorism on several different continents. Major world powers like China and Russia are becoming increasingly more aggressive. The threats from rogue regimes, cyber attacks, and weapons of mass destruction are increasing. All the while, the international cooperation and stability continue to deteriorate. The world in which we live needs experience at the helm of the CIA. Gina Haspel joined the CIA during the Cold War and has played a part in keeping our country safe ever since. She has served with distinction for over 30 years, working at almost every level of the National Clandestine Service. For her contribution, she's been awarded the Intelligence Medal of Merit, the George H.W. Bush Award for Excellence for Counterterrorism, the Donovan Award, and a Presidential Rank Award. Gina's nomination is also significant because, if confirmed, she would be the first female director of the CIA in the agency's history, an achievement that is long overdue, considering the incredible contribution over the years that women have made to the mission of the CIA. Throughout her career at the CIA, Gina has held many leadership positions, but also taken on some of the most demanding and least rewarding assignments that the agency has to offer. Gina joined the CIA's Counterterrorism Center in the wake of 9/11, putting herself at risk when her country needed her the most. As the committee well knows, these jobs require long hours, are nerve-wracking, and come with great personal risks. It's difficult to talk about all of Gina's accomplishments over her 30-plus year career at the CIA in an open setting, but I know that each of you have reviewed her extensive record. Gina has been criticized in the press for some of her work done at the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, and frankly, I find this criticism very troubling. In 2011, as you all know, Mike Morrell reviewed Ms. Haspel's conduct related to the CIA's destruction of the interrogation tapes and determined her actions to be appropriate and found no fault in the performance of her duties. We all have very strong feelings about the counterterrorism programs that the CIA carried out following 9/11. However, responsibility for these programs rests with the Commander-in-Chief and the senior leadership at the CIA, not Gina Haspel. When a CIA officer is carrying out authorities granted to them by the President at the direction of their superiors and in a way that is determined to be lawful by the Attorney General, they should not be punished, period. I hope I've made the case for Gina, but I also hope you won't just take my word for it. Gina's nomination is being supported by a broad spectrum of national security professionals who have served in both Republican and Democratic administrations. Intelligence community leaders like Henry Kissinger, Jim Clapper, Bob Kerrey, Mike McConnell, Mike Hayden, Leon Panetta, John Brennan, and many others. In today's political climate, I cannot name the last time that so many former intelligence professionals agreed on a single nominee. Everything I've said to this point is part of the public record, and I now want to close by putting a personal touch on this nomination. During my 2 years on the HPSI and 12 years on this committee, I traveled overseas extensively for the purpose of conducting oversight of the intelligence community. A lot of that travel was with Chairman Burr and with Senator Feinstein. With only a couple of obvious exceptions, we visited with the intelligence community personnel in every hotspot in the world. On several of those stops, we visited with Gina Haspel. Never were we less than significantly impressed by the leadership that Gina was giving to the agency. Every member here knows the mission of the CIA, but I'd just like to say to the general public the written stated mission at the CIA, which is to preempt threats and further U.S. national security objectives by collecting intelligence that matters, producing objective all-source analysis, conducting effective covert action as directed by the President, and safeguarding the secrets that help keep our nation safe. No one is better prepared, more focused, or more capable to carry out that mission than is Gina Haspel. Mr. Chairman, Gina is a proven leader who knows the agency and the threats we face. She is ideally suited to become the next and first female director of the CIA. Everybody on this committee has an obligation to vet her nomination thoroughly, and I know you will. But at the end of the day, I urge you to support her nomination and send it to the floor so that her nomination can be confirmed by the Senate of the United States. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Chambliss. Senator Bayh.
Thank you, Chairman Burr, Vice Chairman Warner, members of the committee, former colleagues, and current friends. Let me begin by thanking each of you for your service and vital work performed on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Chambliss and I know firsthand the important responsibility each of you bear, and I'm sure I speak for millions of our fellow citizens when I thank you for carrying it out in such an exemplary manner. It's a pleasure to be with you again to introduce Gina Haspel. My connection to this committee, Mr. Chairman, is longstanding. In fact, my father, Birch Bayh, served on this panel when it was first created in the aftermath of the church hearings, which documented the essential need for Congress for congressional oversight of our intelligence community, a role this nominee strongly supports. My own decade of service on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, including with many of you, was, to say the least, eventful. Like today, we faced Russian hostility, Iranian regional ambitions, an expansionist China, an erratic North Korea, cyber threats, and much, much more. But unlike today, and thank God for that, on September the 11th, 2001, we experienced a tragedy that indelibly defined those years, when a group of suicidal fanatics killed almost 3,000 innocent men, women, and children. It was the deadliest attack on our homeland in half a century. Who can forget the image of the Twin Towers falling? Who can forget the images of people leaping to their deaths to escape the flames? When would the next attack come? how many more Americans would die. Throughout it all, this committee was an oasis of bipartisanship. No Democrats, no Republicans, just Americans working together to protect our country. Gina Haspel has done, and if confirmed, will do likewise. She is a lifelong intelligence professional, does not come from the world of politics, and may be the most nonpartisan individual ever nominated for Director of Central Intelligence. It is instructive that former DCIs of both parties endorse her nomination, including Leon Panetta, John Brennan, and Michael Hayden. Each of these men had been blunt in their criticism of some aspects of the current administration, but all support Gina Haspel. Ms. Haspel, as has been noted, is without question the most qualified person ever nominated for this position. For 33 years, she has worked to defend America from those who would harm us. She has served on the front lines, and she has served with some who now are memorialized with gold stars on the wall in Langley in tribute to their ultimate sacrifice. She knows the cost of freedom. She is a clear-eyed, hard-nosed expert on Russia at a time of mounting threats from that nation. And if confirmed, as Senator Chambliss noted, she would be the first woman to serve as DCIA, sending a clear message that advancement in the intelligence community is based on merit, not impeded by prejudice. Finally, she had the unenviable, weighty responsibility of protecting American lives during times of maximum danger, while also remaining true to our core values. As Senator Warner indicated, questions will be asked today, and they should be asked today, about whether the right decisions were always made. And you should probe deeply to determine whether, if mistakes occurred during that difficult time, were lessons learned, and whether the hard-won wisdom will inform our future conduct. Under Director Haspel, I am confident it will. If approved by this panel and confirmed by the Senate, Gina Haspel will obey the rule of law. She has the experience and strength to speak truth to power. She's devoted to protecting Americans from those who would harm us, and doing so consistent with our fundamental values, because she knows that it is those ideals that are our ultimate source of strength, and those principles that make America the exceptional nation she has sworn to defend. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Bayh. And on behalf of the committee, I thank both of you for your service to the country and to your willingness to be here for the introduction. I would now excuse you from that table. Ms. Haspel, I'd ask you to stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to give the committee the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Ms. Haspel, before we move to your statement, I'll ask you to answer 5 standard questions the committee poses to each nominee who appears before us. They just require a simple yes or no answer for the record. 1, do you agree to appear before the committee here or in any other venue when invited?
I do.
2, if confirmed, do you agree to send officials from your office to appear before the committee and designated staff when invited?
I do.
3, do you agree to provide documents or any other materials requested by the committee in order to carry out its oversight and legislative responsibilities?
I do.
4, will you both ensure that your office and your staff provide such materials to the committee when requested?
I will.
And 5, do you agree to inform and fully brief to the fullest extent possible all members of the Committee of Intelligence Activities and Covert Action rather than only the chair and the vice chairman?
I do.
Thank you very much We'll now proceed to your opening statement. Ms. Haspel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Burr, Vice Chairman Warner, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I want to thank Senators Chambliss and Bayh for the kind words and support. I would also like to take just a moment to recognize a few guests who have come today, including Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence and my good friend Sue Gordon, CIA Chief Operating Officer Brian Bulletow, Mrs. Susan Pompeo, thank you for coming, the best ambassador I ever worked for, Ambassador Louis Sussman, and two dear mentors of mine, senior CIA officers and then later senior IC officials, Mary Margaret Graham and Charlie Allen. I am here because I have been nominated to lead the extraordinary men and women at the Central Intelligence Agency, men and women who are our country's silent warriors. These dedicated professionals spend much of their careers in difficult, far-flung outposts of the globe, striving to make our fellow Americans more secure at home. It has been the privilege of my professional life to be one of those CIA officers. Now, I have been asked by President Trump to lead this workforce and to continue the work that Mike Pompeo and I began a little more than a year ago, ensuring that CIA is postured to meet the complex challenges our nation faces. Those challenges include a changing but still lethal threat from terrorist groups, a nuclear threat against the continental United States from a rogue state, destabilizing Iranian adventurism, an aggressive and sometimes brutal Russia, and the long-term implications of China's ambitions on the global stage. While these challenges are daunting and offer few easy answers, I am confident the United States and the American people have the resolve to meet them head-on. If I am confirmed as director, you have my solemn commitment that I will position this agency to provide the intelligence support our country needs to meet the challenges of today and those of tomorrow. I welcome the opportunity to introduce myself to the American people for the first time. It is a new experience for me as I spent over 30 years undercover and in the shadows. I don't have any social media accounts, but otherwise I think you will find me to be a typical middle-class American, one with a strong sense of right and wrong, and one who loves this country. I was born in Kentucky, and while my family has deep roots there, I was an Air Force brat, and we followed my father to postings all over the world. My childhood overseas instilled in me a deep love for foreign languages and cultures, but also a deep understanding of the vital role of American leadership in combating aggression abroad. I joined CIA in 1985 as a case officer in the clandestine service. From my first days in training, I had a knack for the nuts and bolts of my profession. I excelled in finding and acquiring secret information that I obtained in brush passes, dead drops, or in meetings in dusty alleys of third world capitals. I recall very well my first meeting with a foreign agent. It was on a dark, moonless night with an agent I'd never met before. When I picked him up, he passed me the intelligence, and I passed him an extra $500 for the men he led. It was the beginning of an adventure I had only dreamed of. The men who ran CIA in those days leaned forward in giving me the right opportunities to succeed or fail. When a very tough, old-school leader announced that I was his pick to be chief of station in a small but important frontier post, a few competitors complained to me directly. Why would they send you? I owe that leader much for believing in me at a time when few women were given these opportunities. While I could have done without some of the long nights sleeping on the floor of my station, I was proud of the work we did there, including the successful capture of 2 major terrorists in the wake of the Africa embassy bombings, a counterproliferation operation that went our way, and the dismantlement of a local terrorist cell. Altogether, I have served 7 tours in the field, 4 as chief of station, including hardship assignments in distant posts, and more recently in the capital of a major U.S. ally. By any standard, my life at the agency, and it has been my life, has exceeded all of my expectations from that January day when I first took the oath to today. There were few senior women leading at CIA in those days, and we are stronger now as an organization because that picture is changing. I did my part quietly and through hard work to break down some of those barriers. And I was proud to be the first woman to serve as the number 2 in the clandestine service. It is not my way to trumpet the fact that I am a woman up for the top job at CIA, but I would be remiss in not remarking on it, not least because of the outpouring of support from young women at CIA and indeed across the IC, because they consider it a good sign for their own prospects. My experience and success as an operations officer led to 3 leadership positions in the clandestine service. And 1 year ago, I was asked to serve as Deputy Director of CIA. The reaction of the workforce to a rare nomination of one of their own to be director, someone who has been in the trenches with them, has been overwhelming. I am humbled by their confidence that I can successfully lead this agency and inspired to work harder than ever to maintain that trust. They know that I don't need time to learn the business of how CIA works. I know CIA like the back of my hand. I know them, I know the threats we face, and I know what we need to be successful in our mission. I have played a leading role this past year in setting us on the right path, and I intend on continuing on that path if I am confirmed as director. Our strategy starts with strengthening our core business, collecting intelligence that helps policymakers protect our country and advance American interests across the globe. It includes raising our investment against the most difficult intelligence gaps, putting more officers in the foreign field where our adversaries are, and emphasizing foreign language excellence. And finally, it involves investing in our partnerships, both within the U.S. government and around the globe. We must do everything we can to follow through on these investments and to make CIA as effective as it can possibly be, because the American people deserve no less than CIA's best effort. This is especially true when it comes to confronting threats from North Korea, Iran, Russia, and China. Today, CIA officers are deployed across the globe, sometimes at significant personal risk, collecting critical human and technical intelligence. I have spent my entire career driving operations, and if confirmed, I will be able to leverage that experience beginning on day 1. I knew that accepting the President's nomination would raise questions about CIA classified activities in my career at the agency. I also understand that it is important for the American people to get to know me so they are able to judge my fitness for this position. So over the last few weeks, we have leaned forward to make more information about my record public. We have also shared details on every aspect of my career through classified channels with this committee as well as with the rest of the Senate. I think it is important to recall the context of those challenging times immediately following 9/11. For me, I had just returned to Washington from an overseas posting, and I reported for duty on the morning of 9/11. I knew in my gut when I saw the video of the first plane hitting the tower in Manhattan that it was bin Laden. I got up and I walked over to the Counterterrorism Center as the CIA compound was evacuated, and I volunteered to help. I didn't leave for 3 years. We worked 7 days a week, and I even had friends who postponed weddings and having babies. The men and women of CIA were driven and charged with preventing another attack. The first boots on the ground in Afghanistan were my colleagues. The first casualty in Afghanistan was a CIA officer and colleague. And it was CIA who identified and captured the mastermind of 9/11 in a brilliant operation. I am proud of our work during that time. The hard lessons we learned from that experience inform my leadership of CIA today. In light of my counterterrorism experience, I understand that what many people want to know about are my views on CIA's former detention and interrogation program. I have views on this issue, and I want to be clear. Having served in that tumultuous time, I can offer you my personal commitment, clearly and without reservation, that under my leadership, on my watch, CIA will not restart a detention and interrogation program. CIA has learned some tough lessons from that experience. We were asked to tackle a mission that fell outside our expertise. For me, there is no better example of implementing lessons learned than what the agency took away from that program. In retrospect, it is clear, as the Sissy Majority Report concluded, that CIA was not prepared to conduct a detention and interrogation program. Today, the U.S. government has a clear legal and policy framework that governs detentions and interrogations. Specifically, the law provides that no individual in U.S. custody may be subjected to any interrogation technique or approach that is not authorized by and listed in the Army Field Manual. I fully support the detainee treatment required by law, and just as importantly, I will keep CIA focused on our collection and analysis missions that can best leverage the expertise we have at the agency. Like I said, we learned important lessons following 9/11. As both a career intelligence officer and as an American citizen, I am a strong believer in the importance of oversight. Simply put, experience has taught us that CIA cannot be effective without the people's trust, and we cannot hope to earn that trust without the accountability that comes with congressional oversight. If we cannot share aspects of our secret work with the public, we should do so with their elected representatives. For CIA, oversight is a vital link to the open society we defend. It's a defining feature of the U.S. intelligence community, and one of the many things that distinguishes us from the hostile services we face in the field. If confirmed as director, I will uphold the agency's obligations to Congress and ensure that oversight works on behalf of the American people. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and the committee for the hard work that is put into the oversight process and for the vital support that this committee provides the officers at CIA. CIA has given me a lot over the past 3 decades, a calling and service to my country, some real-life adventures, and the profound satisfaction of serving with some of the most talented and honorable men and women in our government. If confirmed, I hope to repay the debt I owe to this remarkable agency by drawing on my experience. I know what my fellow officers need from me, and I know what our nation needs from CIA, and that is truth, integrity, and courage.